All right, page 352, Chapter 9, Lesson 3, Human Impact on Ecosystems. Name, class, date, Science, FNT, Chapter 9, Lesson 3, page 352, Human Impact on Ecosystems. Main idea / essential question. Human activities can affect the number and types of organisms an ecosystem can support. Human activities can affect the number and types of organisms an ecosystem can support. Biodiversity, page 355. Turn to 355. The variety of species that live in an ecosystem. Biodiversity, variety of species. Pollution, page 354. Pollution is the addition of harmful substances to the environment. Pollution, harmful substances. First section, human activities. Human activities. Rainforests are among the most valuable resources on Earth. Rainforests equal valuable resource. They are home to a vast variety of plants and animals. Yet, by one account, almost 200,000 square kilometers, or 77,000 square miles, are lost each year. About 77,000 square miles lost each year. That's about 37 city blocks per minute. Why should you care? One reason is that plants and animals may become extinct when their habitats are destroyed. May cause extinctions. Scientists believe that some rainforest plants may contain substances that could be used as medicines. Plants could be medicines. In addition, rainforest plants release oxygen and take in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Oxygen and carbon cycles. Remember that from a previous lesson? Humans have a huge impact on ecosystems by destroying habitats. Humans have huge impact. In fact, habitat loss is the main reason for rising rates of extinction. Habitat loss leads to extinction. Other ecosystems are affected too. Not only are rainforests affected, other ecosystems are affected too. Tropical rainforests are being cleared for farming and logging. Many species are lost along with the forests. Okay, think of all the moss and the lichen and the plants and the bugs and the insects. Everything that was living in this whole area has been wiped out and cleared out now. Clear cutting is a problem in many temperate forests in the United States. So, example given, clear cutting forests. Clear cutting means removing every tree from an area. This practice destroys ecosystems and habitats. Clear cutting also causes extensive soil erosion. Soil erosion. Forests often are cut down to make way for houses, strip malls, roads, and office parks. But in the process, plant and animal habitats are destroyed. Wetlands are sometimes drained and filled in to provide land for businesses and housing developments. Wetlands filled. Until recently, people did not understand the importance of wetlands. These ecosystems help filter harmful chemicals from groundwater. Filter groundwater. The spongy grasses in wetlands absorb excess water during heavy rains, helping to reduce flooding. Reduce flooding. Wetlands are also important nurseries for many aquatic animal species. Nurseries. So that means that the baby animals grow up there and become bigger there. Frogs, amphibians, lizards, mosquitoes, insects, all kinds of stuff. Farming practices also impact ecosystems. Stable ecosystems are characterized by a great variety of species. Most farms, however, raise only a small variety of plant strains and animal breeds. So, farming, less variety. This practice can lead to entire crops being wiped out by disease. So from less variety causes more disease, or it's easier to die off from diseases. Most plant diseases affect only one type of crop. By growing a variety of crops in the same field, disease-causing organisms are less likely to spread. So that's called monoculture. When farmers only plant one kind of crop, That one kind of crop could easily be wiped out by a disease. All right, how does urban sprawl affect plant and animal species? Okay, we haven't heard those words yet, urban sprawl. Here's a picture. Developers cut the top off a hillside to build these houses in California. They literally just graded off all that extra dirt to flatten it out. Okay, so over here where humans have huge impact, urban sprawl. Urban is an urban area, cities. Sprawl means to spread out or get bigger. So when humans spread out and get bigger and take up more territory, that's called urban sprawl. Okay, the question was, how does that affect plant and animal species? Urban sprawl can easily cause extinctions, right? Humans have a huge impact on these habitats, wiping them out, clear-cutting forests, causing soil erosion, and even filling in wetlands. So it's harder for groundwater to be filtered, more flooding occurs, animals don't have nurseries to grow and develop, and they're more susceptible to diseases. All right, next section, pollution. Pollution. What other human activities can impact ecosystems? Burning fossil fuels is one example. Fossil fuels include oil, gas, and coal. Okay, burning fossil fuels. These fuels contain stored energy that is released when they are burned. However, burning them can cause pollution. So, causes pollution. Pollution is the addition of harmful substances to the environment. When fossil fuels are burned, certain gases and solid particles are released into the air. These pollutants can make the air unhealthy to breathe. So, from burning fossil fuels to pollution, air unhealthy. Some combine with water droplets to form acids. They fall to the ground as acid rain. Can form acid. Now, acid rain isn't necessarily going to burn you immediately on your skin, but it does hurt plants, it hurts animals. If it stays on the surface of your car, it could ruin your paint job. So acid rain is bad for plants and animals. It's bad for ecosystems. Fossil fuels don't have to be burned to pose a threat to the environment. Oil, for example, is often transported on big ships called tankers. Accidental spills can damage the environment and be expensive to clean. Oil spills, damage plus expensive. About 300,000 birds died following a major oil spill in Alaska in 1989. Human activities can also pollute the land. Each year, people in the United States produce hundreds of millions of tons of solid waste, including paper, plastics, and metals. Solid waste. That's trash. Most solid waste is buried in landfills, and some is burned. Landfills. However, people sometimes carelessly dump solid waste along roadsides or in bodies of water. So arrow from solid waste, roadside / water. We've seen this all over the place around our area. As you're driving down the road, how often do you see beds thrown out on the side of the road? TVs, old furniture, all that stuff is solid waste that people are dumping on the roadside. And that stuff pollutes the environment, especially anything with metals and chemicals in it. Okay, some farming and lawn care practices also cause pollution. Rain can wash fertilizers and pesticides into rivers and streams, where they damage the ecosystem. Fertilizers and pesticides. Reminds me of biomagnification. Air pollution. Factories that burn fossil fuels can release harmful substances into the air. Okay, we already got that. Burning fossil fuels, pollution, air unhealthy. Water pollution. Oil spills can harm plants and animals that live in or near the water. Oil spills cause damage. They're expensive to clean up. Land pollution. Trash and garbage are often carelessly discarded, polluting the land. Solid waste or trash goes in landfills and pollutes the roadside and even our water. Next section, growth of human population. Hundreds of years ago, the impact of human activities was relatively small. There were no power plants or motor vehicles, and the human population was much smaller than it is today. As the graph shows, today's human population is very large and growing larger all the time. It's large, whoop, and growing larger all the time. Today's population large, growing. Page 355. That's where the graph is. In 1800, only about 1 billion people lived on Earth. By 1930, that number had doubled. A mere 30 years later, the population had increased to 3 billion. Today, more than 6 billion people live on the planet. Modern humans have been around for thousands of years, yet population growth remained fairly steady until around 1800. Steady until around 1800. Advances in medicine and technology have allowed more people to survive diseases and accidents and to lead longer lives. Medicine, technology, bracket, survive longer lives. Everyone needs food, clean water, clean air, shelter, and other resources. Everyone needs resources. As you have learned, however, ecosystems have limited resources. Resources are limited. If the human population continues to grow, not enough resources will be available. In fact, in many parts of the world, food and water are already scarce or poorly managed. Human growth has also reduced biodiversity, the variety of species that live in an ecosystem. Reduced biodiversity, which means variety. Wild places are home to a much greater variety of living things than a typical city, suburb, or farm. As humans continue to grow in number, more species surely will be threatened and more habitats destroyed. Humans grow, habitats destroyed. Read on to find out how people are addressing these problems. Okay, a growing human population must compete for a limited amount of resources. What is the current human population? Well, all the way back in the early 2000s, it was over 6 billion people. So I'm sure it's much larger 20 years later. Why has the human population grown so much over the past 200 years? The human population has grown so much over the past 200 years because advances in medicine and technology have allowed us to survive and live longer lives. All right, next section, conservation and preservation efforts. Conservation and preservation efforts. As you have read, human activities often harm ecosystems, but people are also trying to repair damaged ecosystems and preserve wild places. Try to repair/preserve. World governments have preserved many areas as national parks, national wildlife refuges, national monuments, and wilderness areas. National parks, wildlife refuges, monuments, wilderness areas. The world's first national park, Yellowstone, was created in northwest Wyoming in 1872. Example given, Yellowstone. When the spread of suburbs threatened to wipe out remaining stands of prairie grasses in Illinois, state agencies and private landowners cooperated to create the 5,800-acre Liberty Prairie Reserve. Liberty Prairie Reserve. The reserve includes tallgrass prairie, wetland, and oak savanna. It is home to at least 21 threatened and endangered species. Some preserves are in the ocean. The Stellwagen Bank National Marine Sanctuary is a preserve off the Massachusetts coast. These waters once were threatened by shipping traffic, sewage, mining, and oil spills. So, pointing at ocean, traffic, sewage, mining, oil spills. Today, the preserve is a habitat for many marine species, including the endangered northern right whale. Zoos and other organizations run captive breeding programs to save some species and restore others. Captive breeding. Hunting had wiped out the gray wolf in Yellowstone National Park. A program was started in the 1990s to return the wolf to the park. Gray wolf. A similar program saved the California condor. California condor. Muir Woods is a woodland preserve north of San Francisco. Visitors can admire California's native redwood trees. Up here by areas, wilderness areas, Muir Woods. Giant pandas are endangered in the wild. This baby receives good care in a zoo. Okay, pandas down here by condor and gray wolf, excuse me. Some regions of the world are particularly rich in plant and animal diversity. Threatened by human activities, these regions are called biodiversity hotspots. Biodiversity hotspots equal quote-unquote rich. That doesn't mean they have a lot of money. That means they have a large variety of plants and animals. They are very diverse. And that's important. You want a lot of diversity to have a stable ecosystem. The Amazon rainforest is a well-known example of a biodiversity hotspot. So example given, Amazon. Rainforests may contain about half of the world's plant and animal species. Think about that again. Rainforests contain half the plant and animal species. So rainforests are very important places. Rainforests. Many of these species produce substances that can be useful to humans. For example, 1/4 of the medicines used today are derived from these organisms. Rainforest organisms yet to be discovered may hold the cures for many of the diseases that afflict humans. I think that's interesting. We're trying to save the rainforest in order to help cure these diseases that afflict humans, but advances in medicine technology is what's allowing us to survive and live longer lives, which then is allowing our population to explode, which then is causing all these problems with limited resources, humans destroying habitats. So we're trying to save this to combat diseases that allow us to live longer, which is causing us to have more population, which is causing us to destroy places like a rainforest. What a weird circle. Another biodiversity hotspot is Madagascar, a tropical island about 300 kilometers or 200 miles off the east coast of Africa. Okay, there it is right there. Madagascar. The fourth largest island in the world, Madagascar is bigger than California. Thanks to its isolation and the late arrival of humans, a great number of plant and animal species not found anywhere else in the world have evolved on this island. So they have unique species. UNIQUE, unique species. Unfortunately, the rainforest of Madagascar is being cleared or burned for rice farming and cattle grazing. Today, less than 15% of the original native forest remains. Less than 15% forest remains. Imagine if that was your cell phone or your tablet or your computer battery and it said less than 15% remaining. You'd be freaking out, right? You'd want to plug it in. Well, less than 15% of the forest that used to be there remains. Only about 2% of Madagascar's total area is in parks or preserves. Around 2% parks reserves. So the battery's down to 15% and we're only protecting 2% of it. Not very good. Oops, I forgot a letter P here for preserves. Wallala! And there it is. Scientists estimate that biodiversity hotspots contain more than 80% of the world's mammals. By protecting biodiversity hotspots, such as the ones shown on the map, scientists hope to preserve plants and animals for the benefit of people in the future. Okay, so here's some of the hotspots. Temperate rainforests up near Seattle and Vancouver, up in Washington and British Columbia, the Amazon rainforest, lowland forest of West Africa, Madagascar, Southeast Asia, countries like Thailand, and New Zealand, off the coast of Australia. Biodiversity hotspots are places where many plant and animal species are threatened with extinction. The rosy periwinkle provides a substance that fights cancer. It is native to Madagascar. So, fighting cancer relies on this one flower in this one place in the world, and that's the only place. What have governments done to help protect ecosystems? Okay, let's answer that. To help protect ecosystems, governments have tried to repair or preserve places. For example, they create national parks, wildlife refuges, monuments, and wilderness areas to preserve biodiversity hotspots. They also have captive breeding programs to try to save certain species on the brink of extinction. All right, turn the page. Saving the Salton Sea. The Salton Sea is a large salty lake in California's Colorado Desert. Large salty lake in California desert. The sea and its wetlands have become important desert ecosystems with abundant fish, birds, and other wildlife. Sea plus wetlands, important. The Salton Sea is also a major stopover for hundreds of bird species that migrate along the Pacific coast. Major stopover, migrating birds. That means it's a place for them to stop and rest, sleep for the night, try to find some food, etc. Little rain falls in the area, so the sea is fed mostly by salty runoff from irrigated farm fields around it. Little rain, farm runoff. Even in the hot desert, the Salton Sea has managed to exist for 100 years. Existed 100 years. But now several changes threaten its survival and its ability to support life. In recent decades, the Salton Sea has been shrinking and getting saltier. Shrinking, saltier. Millions of fish have already died. Millions of fish dead. Hey, that's bird food. So that means the birds don't have food when they stop over to rest and get some food on the way as they're migrating. If it becomes a dead lake, the birds that feed at the Salton Sea will have to find food elsewhere. Because 90% of California's wetlands have already disappeared, the Salton Sea is becoming increasingly important. 90% California wetlands disappeared. Okay, think about that, the opposite, the battery again. That means your battery level is at 10%. Again, if your phone or your tablet or your computer were at 10% battery, you would be freaking out. Well, your wetlands across the entire state of California are at 10%. To save it, government officials have suggested several ideas to reduce the amount of salt and to preserve habitats. For example, canals could bring in fresh water. Canals could bring in fresh water. Let's see. Artificial wetlands could filter polluted runoff that enters the sea. Artificial wetlands. So people could go out there with big tractors and plows and make artificial wetlands that do the function of the wetlands we used to have. Lake water could be pumped into ponds. Then evaporation would concentrate salt in the ponds, lowering the amount of salt in the rest of the lake. So we could make salt ponds. The black-necked stilt uses its long legs to wade through the water. Its health depends on the health of the Salton Sea, its home. Reduced runoff from nearby fields has shrunk the Salton Sea and made it saltier. Why is it important to maintain the health of Salton Sea? Okay. It is important to maintain the health of the Salton Sea because it is a major stopover for migrating birds. And those birds rely on that rest and that food in order to continue their migration along the Pacific coast. It is an important ecosystem. All right, let's get our highlighter. Let's get our pen. Highlight and annotate key details. Visual summary. Pollution is just one example of how human activities can harm ecosystems. Pollution can poison plants and animals and reduce resources available to them. Okay, so pollution is a human activity. It affects organisms and ecosystems. Pollution is a harmful substance. Okay, pollution is a human activity. What else? Habitat loss, clear cutting, erosion, wetlands, farming, burning fossil fuels. Here we go. Pollution Let's see, it can make the air unhealthy. It could form acids. It can cause damage and be expensive. Solid waste or trash causes problems. Fertilizer and pesticides. Burning fossil fuels. Okay, let's flip over. Growth of human population. Well, as human population grows, we're going to have more and more pollution and trash. Conservation and preservation efforts. I don't think we're quite there yet. And saving the Salton Sea, I don't think we're there yet either. Okay. The growth of Earth's human population has put pressure on resources of natural ecosystems. Humans use land, food, and water supplies that once supported wildlife. Okay, so all about resources. Let's see. Human activities. Where are we doing it? We're causing habitat loss because we're clearing out those resources, and that can cause extinction. We're clear-cutting forests and eroding the soil, filling in the wetlands. Our farming can lead to diseases because of lower variety. What else? Growing populations. Medicine and technology are allowing us to survive and live longer lives. Everyone needs resources, but they're limited. It reduces biodiversity, and we're destroying habitats. Okay, individuals and governments are working to protect wildlife and to preserve and restore ecosystems. Challenges face people in California and around the world. So we're making conservation and preservation efforts. We're trying to repair and preserve places. Let's see, we also try to do captive breeding programs. We try to do things like national parks and all these others. We try to protect biodiversity hotspots because they're rich in biodiversity, rich in animals and plants. What else? Okay, any of that stuff about saving the Salton Sea as a specific example. So let's highlight Salton Sea. What is the problem there? Well, it's an important ecosystem. It's a stopover for migrating birds, and it doesn't get very much rain. It relies on farm runoff. But it's shrinking and getting saltier. 90% of California's wetlands have disappeared, and we have to come up with ways to fix it. All right, let's switch over to our red pen, and now let's do our own annotating. So, human activities, they affect organisms and the ecosystem. Okay, pollution, we cause pollution. Human activities, that's that entire section. A big problem is habitat loss. And here's examples of what we do. Pollution is an entire section. There are a lot of ways that we pollute. Fertilizers and pesticides, that reminds me of biomagnification. 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 Okay, let's look at the growth of population. Right, medicine and technologies have helped us survive. Again, habitats are getting destroyed, so that's reducing biodiversity. We do try to conserve and preserve a little bit. We focus on biodiversity hotspots. We use captive breeding programs to help certain species. And then the Salton Sea is a California example of how an important place can be getting worse, shrinking and salty, and we have to do something about it. All right, so looking ahead to the summary, human activities can affect the number and types of organisms an ecosystem can support. One human activity that causes a lot of problems is habitat loss, such as clear-cutting forests or filling in wetlands. This leads to extinction and can cause more diseases. Humans cause or create a lot of pollution by burning fossil fuels and dumping solid waste trash, or by using fertilizers and pesticides. Human populations are growing so fast because of medicine and technology that allows us to survive and live longer lives. That causes us to destroy even more habitats as we compete for, where did it go? Limited resources. Where's the limited resources? Where did we say limited resources? There we go. As we compete for limited resources. We try to conserve and preserve special places like national parks and biodiversity hotspots, and we use captive breeding programs to save species. The Salton Sea is an example of a place in California that is an important ecosystem. It is shrinking and getting saltier, and we're trying many different things to save it. Okay, phase 3. I know I predict. What do you know that did not get written down on this piece of paper? What's in your brain? What do you predict? And make sure you give a reason. All right, that was a long one. Good job persevering with a growth mindset, and roar, Wildcats.